Welcome, welcome, welcome to yet another episode of Glorious Life on Wheels, where I show you how to make simple, delicious meals on a butane stove. And you can make these meals no matter what your level of cooking is. So what do you say? Come on and join us. What I'm calling this cake is a caramel cake with a cream cheese frosting. Now, I had been working on a number of recipes, including just regular like 7-Up cake, doing it on top of the stove. But I came across a young lady, and her name is My Cristories, and I'll run it across the bottom so you can see it. And she had a great recipe that she did with condensed milk on top of a stove with a cake. So I'm going to use that, and then I'm going to upgrade it. But I'm going to hopefully send you all over also to her channel, because I think she's really a rising star. But meanwhile, let's get started making this cake and see how it turns out. Oh, just to let you know, I haven't made this before. I've worked around on different ones, but I haven't made this one. The last time I tried developing something online, I almost burned us down. But hopefully we'll have better luck this time. So let's get started. What you're going to need for this recipe, very, very simple. You're going to need a can of Eagle brand condensed sweetened milk. Make sure you don't just get regular canned milk, sweetened milk. And you can use any brand, I just happen to like Eagle brand. You're going to need 3 eggs, and I prefer them at room temperature. You're going to need a cup of flour. Almost forgot what I had in my hand. A cup of flour. You're going to need a teaspoon of baking powder, and then I add also some vanilla, and then you will need a 1/4 cup of melted butter. So let's get started, and I will show you how simple this is. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to crack our 3 eggs, and I like them at room temperature if possible. 1, 2, 3. Okay, I don't know how I did this, but I got a little piece of shell in here. Let me get this out of here. I do not want to serve a cake that has some shell in it. Okay, we're good. All right, then what I'm going to do is I'm going to whip this up. Whip my egg up really good here. Then I'm going to add my melted butter to it. This is, as I said, about a 1/4 cup of melted butter. And then I'm going to get that beat up really good into here. Get this in here. Getting this whipped up really good. Got this down here so you can see this. I'm left-handed, so when I do it with my left hand, it's a little bit of a challenge. Then what we're going to do is we're going to add our Eagle brand into here. Let me get all of that in here. Got that all in here. Get all of this out of here. I've done some versions of this, but this is, like I said, this is new for me on this show. So we'll see how this turns out. I think I'd rather use my spoon right now instead of my whisk. So let me just get this good and stir it up here. Get it nice, and takes a little while for it to get, well, a little while, a minute or so for it to get all that egg incorporated into the Eagle brand. And this is the same way it happens when you do the Eagle brand with a lemon pie. You have your lemon juice and your egg, and you have to get it all incorporated in here like I'm doing here. You don't want that butter our egg floating on top in here. See, let me show you here. See how it's all mixed in here good now? It's all in here, all mixed really good. Okay, I've got this. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to add my vanilla because I like doing all of my liquid at one time if I can. Oops, that spoon wants to fall down there. Okay, I'm going to add probably about maybe a teaspoon or so of vanilla. There we go. And add real vanilla, not imitation vanilla. Then let's get that incorporated into here again. Again, we've got to go through that same process to get that added all in there. And then what I'm going to do is I'm just going to start adding my flour. I'm going to add my flour a little at a time. Making a mess here. And we will come back. As you can see, I add a little bit, stir, add a little bit, stir, and we'll come back in a second after I get this all mixed up in here. All right, this is all beat up. Now normally, if you're in a house, you would be beating this with a mix master or a hand beater, but I beat it, oh, I don't know, probably 150. My mom used to say 250, but I know I didn't beat it 250 times. But I did beat that so you can see it's very creamy and rich. And then I'm going to add just a teaspoon of baking powder. Now the recipe actually calls for just regular flour, and I use self-rising plus, that's all I had, and I'm using baking powder, so I might not have needed a baking powder, but we'll see. We'll see how this comes out. I had someone the other day who asked me, who said, oh, we really like seeing you do it impromptu on the show. I was like, yeah, they probably liked the idea of, never mind, me blowing things up. Oh, but anyhow, I got this added in here. And now what we're going to do is I have got this pot. Now here's the dilemma I have. I have this pot which has a top that fits it. I have this pot that doesn't have a pot that fits it, but I like this pot better, and I'll tell you why. On something like this, cooking a cake, you're going to cook it on low. But I like, see how thick the walls are on this pot, and see how thin. I don't know if you can see the difference, but there's a big difference between the thickness. And I like the idea of this thicker pot because I think it's less likely to burn. So what I'm going to do, since I don't have a top to fit this pot, I got this pot at a thrift store and there was no top with it, I am going to use double coating of aluminum foil on top, and we'll just have to see how it turns out. So anyhow, what we're going to do, got that all mixed up, got the baking powder all mixed up in here. What I'm going to do is I'm going to grease with butter. I'm going to grease this pot. My mom, let's see, hold on. A smaller piece here. I'm going to grease this pot or butter this pot so hopefully it won't stick in here. And then now my mom used to butter and then have, well, I used to do it because I was her sous chef. I used to butter and then she'd have me flour it, but I'm not going to flour this, I'm just going to butter it. And we're going to pour this in here. Let me do it this way so you can see it. Pour that all in there, get that all in here. There we go. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn this gas on to low, I think. We're going to let this go for about 20 minutes on low. What I'm going to do is I have 2 pieces of aluminum foil here. They're the heavy duty, and I am going to wrap this around here tight and see how this turns out. Okay, I'm going to turn that down just a little bit. I think it's on a little too high. Okay, I have taken it, turned the gas off because I think it's, and let's get a shot here of me sticking this to check. Stick this fork in here, and let's come back out. Nothing on it, it's done. All right, I'm gonna turn around and plate this up, invert it, and we'll come back and I'll show you what it looks like. This smells so good, and it's nice and springy and bouncy. But I'll tell you the truth, it got a little bit brown on the bottom because I started it off almost on medium, and I should have had it on the lowest, but it is looking good. I am going to make the frosting for this, and we're going to come back and taste it and see what it tastes like. And in a minute, I'll show you how I make the caramel frosting, and we'll be back in a second. Okay, we're back. The cake is done as I showed you, and now I'm going to show you how to make a caramel topping. Again, this is something I'm developing as I go. So it may turn into a blooper, or it may turn into something just absolutely divine. So we'll see. But what you're going to need for this, you're going to need some sugar, a cup of sugar, which I'm going to pour into this pan. You're going to need some vanilla, some whipping cream, heavy whipping cream, a couple tablespoons of water, and I am going to, since I'm making rum, trying to make a rum frosting, I'm going to use this Rum Chata because it's a combination of rum and cream, because I want to make my sauce kind of creamy with a little bit of rum flavor. So let's go ahead, and then I'm going to garnish it with some pecans. So let's go ahead and turn this on. Now I am going to get this on about medium, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to kind of spread this, even this sugar out in the bottom of here. Now you can do this with brown sugar also, but I'm doing it with white sugar, and I'm going to add a couple of tablespoons of water just to help this caramelize a little bit, this sugar. Now I'm going to mix it up, and then after I've mixed that up a little bit, I'm going to leave it alone, and I'm not going to bother it again because I don't want it to get all crystallized, and if you keep messing with it, that's what will happen. So I'm going to leave that alone, let it just heat up there on its own. Get the rest of that sugar out there. And it's a fine line between burning and caramelizing. So you really do have to watch this. And you can every once in a while, you can swish it around a little bit. Some people whisk it. I don't whisk mine. I just let it caramelize on its own, and I will swish it around in the pot a little bit. So this is one of the times that you watch a pot. Normally they say what, a watch pot burns or something like that. But let's get this turned down just a little bit more. Now what I'm going to do is, after it caramelizes and melts down and starts bubbling, just when it starts bubbling, I'm going to add the butter, which will kind of stop the cooking a little bit, get it melted. Then I'm going to add a little bit of whipping cream, maybe about a half a cup, a quarter to a half a cup. I'll see as I go. And then I'm going to add some of the Rum Chata and a little bit of vanilla. So we'll see how this turns out. Okay, you can see, can you bring that over here? You can see it's starting to bubble here. And as it starts to bubble, it'll start to turn brown. And just as it starts to turn brown is when you're going to add your butter. I'm letting that. Oh, it's hard for me. I want to mess with this and stir it, but I know if I do, it could. So instead of stirring it, I'm going to swish it or swirl it around a little bit. Just swirl it around a little bit, and then put it back down on the heat. This little bit of sugar over here doesn't seem to be wanting to mix in, so I'm going to mix that in just a little bit. Just a little bit, but I'm not messing with it too much. Okay. Bubbling up there, and we'll come back in a couple of minutes, maybe 3-4 minutes after it's bubbled up and completely bubbled up, and we'll add our butter. We'll be back in a minute. Okay, this is starting, as you can see, this is starting to get all caramely, and so I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to add my butter. I'm going to remove it from the heat there as I stir my butter in here. Now it's getting a little bit crystallized, so I have got to put it back on a real low heat, let that melt back down. Add my butter in here. And now I'm going to add my cream in here, a couple tablespoons of cream. And we're going to take this off the heat here. Let it get. And I'm going to put it back on here, and I'm going to turn it on extra low, and I'm going to add my vanilla now. About let's say maybe a teaspoon or so of vanilla. Oops, maybe a little more. Okay, and now I'm going to whisk it a little bit. I should have had my rubber whisk rather, but I didn't. And I'm going to let that just brown up and get good and caramelized there. See how it's starting to thicken up again? Now I'm going to add a little bit of my rum Chabata. The rum Chabata, about a couple of tablespoons there. And get my whisk again here. It's starting to brown up here. I'm going to sample this and see how the flavor is on this. Let me put this in. Don't want to put it directly from. Hold on, just a minute. Let me let it go a little bit further. I'm going to hold on to sample it until it gets a little bit thicker. It's smelling really good. We'll be back in a minute. Okay, I am going to, it will thicken up on you here, and I am going to add just a little bit of cream cheese, maybe about 2 teaspoons of softened cream cheese to this. And that's going to swirl that in and let that get good and it's going to melt up. And what we'll do on this is we will whisk this. If I want this to get nice and creamy in here. And since it is still hot, it's also melting. And just to let you know, don't use a metal whisk. If you can help it, get a whisk that has a high temperature rating. But I wasn't sure on my temperature rating, so I didn't want my whisk melting. Okay, this is really nice and creamy. Can you see how creamy that is? All of the cream cheese has gotten integrated into that. So we've got the rum Chabata, the caramel, the vanilla, and the cream cheese. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to let this cool for a bit, and it will thicken up, and then I'm going to put it over the cake. And we'll be back. All right, here comes the fun part. Now to sample. But you know what? Before I do that, I want to just show you something real quick. I want to show you see how it thickened up? So this is more a white caramel because I didn't let it get quite brown because I didn't want it to burn. But this is how it'll thicken up, and if you put it in the refrigerator, it'll even be thicker. So that's the caramel frosting with cheesecake and rum sauce on it. Let's see how if this is a blooper or if this is a winner. This is a winner. This is the first time I have made a cake on top of the stove, and it is really good. What I did, I pierced holes all the way through, but I think what I would do next time is pierce even bigger holes so that the caramel rum sauce can go all the way through inside the cake. But this is delicious. Well, now you know how to make a delicious gourmet cake on top of the stove. Well, now is the time that you've been waiting for, and we're going to do our viewer tip of the week. All right, I haven't written down the tips of the week. Actually, I picked 2 tips because I couldn't remember everything. The first tip was from Donna S., and it was about the mac and cheese that I made. And this was a good idea if you don't want to waste water or drain water, especially if you're on the road and in a van. You know how precious a commodity water is. So she said for every 8 ounces of macaroni, bring 1.5 cups of water and 1 cup of whole milk. I would do half and half, or whole milk to a boil. Add your pasta and reduce the heat for 6 to 8 minutes. Then she said you add all the seasonings and the cheese, and you keep it on low until it's all very well mixed and melted, and saves you having to drain it. So I thought that was a really good idea. You can experiment with that, but you can do it that way, and I'll have to try that way. So thank you, Donna. And the other tip was from my good friend Vanderella on the road, who said for the fried zucchini, they're on a keto diet. So instead of rolling the zucchini in the breadcrumbs that I used, she said they will smash up pork rinds and use that as breading instead of the breadcrumbs. So I thought those were 2 really, really good tips. So thank you for those tips. Keep them coming in. And Ms. TR and Georgia S are the ones, are two people who had asked for a cake recipe on top of a stove. So this is for the two of you. Thank you. So thank you again for those tips. And I just want to thank you. We are over 4,000 subscribers. Do you believe that? And that's thanks to all of you. Plus, I just wanted to do a shout out to Gina, who had me on her channel earlier in the week, and she was the one who pushed us over by 4,000. I was at 3,990, and I thought on the 31st of August, and I thought, well, you know, came close, didn't quite make it. But when I went on her live, she did a shout out and encouraged her viewers to go over and got us over the top. So thank you so much for that, Gina. I really appreciate it. And I just want to ask you if you will just make sure and subscribe, because when I've been checking, I have a lot of people going through and watching the videos, but only about half of you are subscribed. So if you're watching this and you enjoy it, please hit that subscribe button. It doesn't cost you even a single copper penny. You just hit that subscribe button, hit the like button, and do make a comment and let me know how you're thinking about it. But again, from the bottom of my heart, thank you so much. May your journey be filled with joy and blessings. And I'll see you next Thursday. Take care, friends. Goodbye.